to the show. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, the Iceman, Jeff Trunapole. And as always, I bring you sports from a West Side point of view right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of the first place Cincinnati Reds. Now, do me a favor, if you found the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. You guys are awesome. Up to 2,233 subscribers. As always, I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter and you've yet to subscribe to my channel, why not? Please do so. Please go to the YouTube channel, Sports with Strawberry Ice. Hit the subscription button at the bell for the notification. Every time I go live, you'll be notified. Also, exclusively in the YouTube chats, we're doing Super Chat. So if you got something you want to ask Reds Hall of Famer, well, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame here in a couple weeks. Reds Hall of Famer, Bronson Arroyo, give me a Super Chat. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, I'm coming to you live from this glorious place down here. It's the Ice Cave. The Ice Cave is brought to you by T Properties. T Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out the website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. And you know what? We're talking baseball today, but I always got to promote the best quarterback in football. That's Jackpot Joey. You can get your gear at jackpotjoey9.com. The beers come back out in about 2 weeks. We got the flags, we got hats, we got all kinds of stuff. Remember, portions of the proceeds go to the Joe Burrow Hunger Relief Fund. All right, guys, I appreciate you hanging on, waiting. We had some technical difficulties sometimes. Computers just don't want to work the way they should. Anyway, let's get to the reason we're all here. He's none other than Reds Hall of Famer, Bronson Arroyo. Bronson, what's going on, man?
Just hanging out, man. Getting ready for the induction.
Exactly. Are you getting excited? I mean, I'm excited for you. I'm happening to me.
Yeah. It's I got a bunch of friends and family coming in town, and I married a hometown girl, so there's a bunch of her family here as well. So it should be a good time, man. It's also, what a great time. I mean, I could have been inducted, maybe a year ago or a couple of years ago when COVID was going on, and wouldn't have had the ability to have people in the ballpark for one. And now the team is doing so well. There's an excitement and there's a buzz back in the city for the first time in 10 years for this team, and it should be a great day, especially with Milwaukee being in town and those guys kind of dogfighting it out for first place.
Exactly. Now, me and my son were at Ellie De La Cruz's first game, and my son, he said, and I thought it was kind of interesting. He said the last time he felt that much electric was Clinchmas 2010 when Jay Bruce hit the walk-off home run. You obviously were there. That's the kind of electric we have going on in the city right now. And you're right. It's awesome that you get to get inducted into the Hall of Fame at this time. I think it's a perfect time, but how exciting is it watching this team right now? I know you've done some broadcasting and stuff for the Reds in the past, but what's your thoughts on the team and how these young guys are playing right now?
Yeah, it's definitely a lucky batch of guys. Now, I am going to say lucky because there's obviously scouts that have made a lot of different trades, and it's a lot of thought has gone into putting these players together. But it's really hard to get this many young guys to be clicking and feel comfortable at the big league level all at the same time, and that hasn't happened here in a really, really long time. And to be able to hold it down, even with the pitching staff that's been a little iffy, is so hard to do from an offensive standpoint. It was part of the reason why I thought we fell short of winning a World Series when I was here, especially in 2012, was the fact that we had a lot of guys that were swing and miss guys. And this team is a bunch of grinders. They remind me of a St. Louis Cardinals team where guys don't strike out a lot. They're not looking to hit a long ball. This team for a long time has survived on home runs. And right now they're doing all of it without a lot of home runs. And, it's just a joy to see them stealing bases. It's a different culture. It's a different vibe. And everybody down in that locker room is having a great time. I've been down there hanging out with the guys a little bit. And it's been a joy to turn on the TV every night and watch the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we talked about the lack of pitching here. Any chance you got a couple innings left of your arm, we might need you to come out of the bullpen.
I tell you what, if I didn't have a tear in my shoulder, I think I definitely could. But with that tear, I pitched a couple innings against the Savannah Bananas in Tampa a couple of months ago, and I'll tell you what, my arm and my elbow, my shoulder didn't want any part of that anymore.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about. How in the world did that happen? And for people who don't know who the Bananas are, I guess go ahead and explain who they are. And you were pitching against them, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, so MLB put together, they basically gave me a call. The MLB Alumni Association was putting together an old retired Major League Baseball team to play against the Bananas in Tampa and a couple different places like Atlanta and Savannah. And so I signed up for the one. They said they needed a couple innings out of me. So I went down there, and it was cool to be with guys like Nick Swisher and just kind of play against the Banana style of baseball, which was totally different and very, very kind of difficult to keep up with in a lot of ways. I mean, we had, in my second inning of pitching, we had second and third and one out. And if a run scores, it's like the bottom of the ninth every inning. So you're playing per inning. It's not like a regular game. So So we hit a ground ball, and instead of they tried to turn the double play, it was actually first and third. They tried to turn the double play, and the run scored anyway, and the inning was over. So it was, you had to kind of get used to that style of play. But it was a fun day to see how they do things, and the guys dancing. And man, talk about excitement in a stadium. I mean, these people were in the rain waiting for the gates to open for a couple of hours before that game. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I heard. I think they count if the fans catch a foul ball. I think that's an out too, or something like that. They said.
Yeah, fans catch a foul ball, it's an out. If you walk, you can run constantly around the bases until the team throws the ball around the horn, including the outfielders. It's
really,
yeah, it's bananas, man. It's a good show, man. And kids are coming, and they don't even care that Bronson Arroyo and Nick Swisher are there. They're talking about their favorite banana players, guys that are dancing out of the field and doing some crazy stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. They didn't ask you to get out there and bring your guitar out there and entertain them or anything, did you?
Yeah, I did actually. That was the best
part
of the day. I took my acoustic guitar. I was coaching third base in the 7th inning. I played an Ed Sheeran song called Shivers. And the guys already knew a dance to that, so the team was dancing on the field to it. The crowd was singing along with it. I mean, that was a joy.
Oh, dude, that's awesome! I gotta look that up. Sure, there's some YouTube videos or something out there. But I gotta look that up. That's not. How long ago was it that you did that? It wasn't that long ago, was it?
That was in April. Yeah, so it was right around spring training, the beginning of the season, and they sold out 2 back-to-back nights there in Tampa at the Yankees complex for spring training, and they're going after big league ballparks next year. So I would expect them to be negotiating with the Reds, and I believe you're gonna get a packed Major League Baseball stadium with a Bananas game next year.
Oh, dude, if they're here, I'm gonna go see them. The funny thing is, so I was on vacation and I was talking to some of my friends down there, and I said, I got Bronson Arroyo gonna be on my show. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, then one of them goes, oh, he pitched against the Bananas. I go, he pitched against the what? Because I'd never heard of him. I didn't know. And then he started telling me about it. I'm like, oh, dude, this sounds cool. I'm like, I gotta ask him about this. When did they start doing this?
It's been a few years now. They actually were playing in the league that they were in, and they won the league a couple of times. But the owner of the team, Jesse, he just realized that he had lightning in a bottle here, man. And they went out on tour, and it's kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters now, where they travel with the team called the Party Animals, and they kind of got the shtick down, and guys are doing stuff. I mean, center fielder in our game, caught a line drive in mid-game and caught it and did a backflip at the same time. I mean, like they're doing some pretty spectacular stuff, and there's a lot of dance routines, and some of it's all choreographed, but it's bringing a buzz to the stadium that I haven't felt in a really long time. It's like these kids are, they're buying sweatshirts and T-shirts like they're going to a rock show, man. It's fun.
Exactly. It sounds like a lot of fun. We got a question from the chat here, which you guys got a question for Bronson, just put it in the chat here. Jim Schroeder here wants to know, and Chance, you reprise your role, your vocal performance of the JTM commercial anytime soon. I think we got to ask that question last time you were on the show.
Yeah, I had a buddy. I was on vacation in Costa Rica with my wife's family the other day, and my brother-in-law, he was like, his friends were like, they really wanted a video of that song. So I figured out the chords while I was playing the guitar and kind of gave him a little verse and chorus of the song. But it's always fun to kind of think about JTM, man, because when we did that commercial, we didn't think anything of it. And now me and Chris Welsh will honestly just be belly laughing talking about the day we filmed that and watching some of that stuff back.
Yeah, Chris Welsh got a tear in his eye and you're singing along. Dude, that's like an iconic commercial now. It's like, I wonder how many you get asked about that probably more than anything else sometimes, it seems like.
Yeah. It's almost like gone down in folklore in a lot of ways. It's something that worth maybe doing like a short, like a little tiny short documentary on, man. Because it was a funny thing because we were supposed to film it earlier in the year, and I wind up being at the stadium on an off day, and I exploded this glass bottle that had Cheerios in it, and it cut my hand really bad, and Dr. Kremchik had to put me under and sew my hand up, so we had to come back during spring training, and it was a whole ordeal.
You need to do a 30 for 30 on the JTM Bronson Arroyo commercial. So let's just get back to the Reds Hall of Famer. Now, how did you find out? I mean, that you got in? Did you know it was a possibility, or was it a complete surprise, or how did that whole thing come out that you found out you're going into the Reds Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I knew I probably was going to be up on the ballot pretty early on after retirement, whenever it was kind of available. I mean, put up 108 wins for this team.
Oh, yeah.
For quite a long time, and amass some numbers that are, in the top 10 of the organization of all time. So I assumed I'd get in there. I didn't know when it was, but once they told me I was on the ballot, I assumed I'd probably slide in there. And Rick Walls, who runs the Reds Hall of Fame, does a great job over there. And he gave me a call and said, we're going to announce it tomorrow. I just wanted to let you know before anybody else. And, I didn't really realize I've been in the hall a couple of times to take some friends, and I knew it was probably the best Hall of Fame in the game.
Right.
Just a really quality museum. It gives you a special feeling being in there. But I didn't realize it was only 90 people in the Hall of Fame. So being the 91st person and thinking about guys like Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan and Pete Rose, guys I've become friends with over the last 15 years, to be standing, in company with those guys is just absolutely remarkable and something you don't think about when you're playing. When you play the game, you think about how long can I survive? How much money can I make? What are the numbers on the back of my baseball card going to look like when I'm done playing this game? But you never think about being in a museum for the rest of eternity, with a busk of your face on the side of a plaque that's standing next to some of the giants of the game. It's pretty awesome.
That's pretty damn cool. Yeah. I can't remember who said it. Somebody who recently got into the Hall of Fame said that. I think it was Sean Casey. I think he said it. It was one of the most prestigious halls to get into, in his opinion, just because of the history of the Reds and, like you said, the actual Hall of Famers that we have that are in our own Hall of Fame that played for this team, and just the history of it. And it is one of the coolest Hall of Fames I think around. I really like it. And once you actually, like you say, you think about it, like. But after you're long gone, your busk is still gonna be in there, and people are like, "Yeah, that's Bronson Arroyo. Yeah, he's a pretty good pitcher for the Reds." Like, yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. You think about legacy sometimes. I just put out a record in February, and part of that is to leave, somewhere in the ether, in the cloud, the ability to download a song that I would have had my voice on, that maybe some distant relative in your family will listen to long before they're ever going to pop in a VCR tape and watch an old baseball game. But being in the Reds Hall of Fame there, I mean, it without question, if fans haven't been in there, I mean, it's interactive. There's things you can do with kids that is pretty cool. They put you in the booth and you can act like you're an announcer, like Jim Day or somebody, but also to walk back in the hall and you feel like you're in a spaceship in a way, like in Star Trek or something. And you can type in any player's name on this computer, and immediately Josie's voice just comes booming out over the TVs, and you see someone's basically the highlights of their career, and all the plaques on the wall have a white ring of light around them. And when your name has been punched in the computer, it glows red around you and stays there while it's being played. And it's such a neat thing, man. I wish I would have walked in there actually more when I was a player, but now going in as a retired guy and checking it out, it's something special. And for me to be sitting in that baby for the rest of eternity, man, as long as the Cincinnati Reds exist, it's just so cool.
That is cool. Now they have a gala and everything, because I've never actually got to go to the event. I'd love to go sometime. Do they? Because that's actually when you get inducted. Is that what it is, or is it actually on the field? I can't remember how it actually happens.
I don't know what they consider it, but you do both things. So they'll be on the 15th before the game against the Brewers, a night game. I'll be on the field with all the Hall of Famers that come back wearing their red jackets, Johnny Bench and all the boys, and I'll be out there on the podium, kind of speaking to the stadium as the game is kind of getting going, and people are filing in. So you don't get a captive crowd sometimes, but it's always awesome to be in the field and have the guys in the dugout. And then the next night on Sunday the 16th, after the day game, all the players will put on a suit and they'll come to the gala. And I've done that quite a few times as a player. And you just sit there. It's basically like a big banquet or a dinner, and you're watching kind of a production up on the stage. And myself and Danny Graves will be the guys up there speaking. And they'll also, they bring some of the old timers back, and they also bring back, sometimes they have surprises, like maybe they're going to show you uniforms for next year or something. They do different things on different years, and we've got a couple surprises up our sleeve this year that people don't know about. So it should be a fun night, and that's where I think it'll be a little bit more intimate, where I get an opportunity to really talk to the crowd, talk to the guys on the team, kind of share stories of childhood and what it means to be, where you came from and how you really got to where you could be in a Hall of Fame anywhere. And on the field on the 15th, I think it'll be more about, thanking the coaches and organization and people that have made me feel comfortable, especially in the city.
So I've never had a Hall of Fame jacket, nor will I ever get one. But when you get yours, where are you going to put it? Is it, you got a special spot? You're going to keep it in the house, or you haven't figured that out yet?
I think you got to keep this thing on tap, because I think the hall kind of comes calling for you. Once you get one of those red jackets, they want you to show up to some events. So, when you see guys like Barry Larkin and Eric Davis coming back and wearing the red jacket, and it's part of a club now. And whenever they have any kind of Hall of Fame induction or anything for anybody else, I'm always going to be there, because I live in town most of the year. And the red jacket comes in handy. I had them come measure me up the other day, and I was thinking, he was saying, "Hey, your jacket's a lot tighter and kind of more form-fitting than most of these guys." And I said, "I know, because guys like Eric Davis, they wore stuff really baggy back in the '90s." And I said,
Exactly.
I'm looking for a European cut these days, so I came over and got it fitted nice.
Exactly. You gotta get it nice and tailored. So, how many of your teammates are in the Hall of Fame now? Larkin's in there. Dunn.
Yeah, Adam Dunn's the only guy I've played with. I think that's probably in, other than Griffey Jr. But I think Griffey went into Cooperstown. I don't think they inducted him into the Reds Hall of Fame.
No, not the Reds one. Not that I know of.
I think it's just Dunn is the only guy I've played with that has gone in.
Well, Casey, you play with Casey, right?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't play with Casey. So I feel like I played with Casey, but he was a Red before I was a Red, and he went to the Red Sox just as I left. So it was like we did a little bit of a swap, but we never actually played together. And a lot of people think I played with Danny Graves as well, and I was a Pirate then, so we never played together either.
Wow, that was another one I thought you played with. Okay, because that was a lot of when guys were coming and going, so I wasn't, I couldn't remember who actually was your teammates. I got a question here from Eric here. Let's see, let's put this up here. Which player gave you the toughest AB throughout your career?
Yeah, there's always some kind of like, there's the obvious choices, which is like a Barry Bonds and an Albert Pujols. And if I had to say who would I not want to see at the plate for the meat and potatoes of my career, it would have been Albert, because I had to face him a lot more than anybody else.
He always killed us. No matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he killed everybody. He killed everybody. I mean, for a decade there, he basically went, 330 and 100 and hit the ball harder than anybody on the planet on the screws all the time. But if I'm talking about guys that are kind of like just are pesky and just had a hard time, I had a hard time getting them out, even though they weren't the best player in the game. Shin-Soo Choo absolutely destroyed me when he's with the Cleveland Indians. And then after we traded Felipe Lopez, who was my teammate, I couldn't get him out for a couple of years. So, sometimes it's usually it would have been a left-handed batter for me, right. And just be guys that just saw the ball off you really well. And then there would be some other guys that you think should do well against you, and they could never get a hit off you. I mean, Jose Altuve is 0 for 13 off me. I think I'm the only pitcher who's ever faced him more than 10 times that he didn't get a hit off of. So
there you go.
Sometimes it's just matchups just don't make sense sometimes.
Right. Now I got a question for you. How did you? And I always call it the iconic kick. Of your pitching stance. This right here. How did you come up with, or not come up, but how did your technique become the way you threw it? The high leg kick, you'd say throwing frisbees up there. Like, how did you develop that?
I was, as a kid, 1985, 1986, I was living down in the Keys. My parents were from Key West, and we had a satellite dish long before anybody had one. And you kind of got a bunch of weird stations. And for some reason, my parents became Mets fans. So we were watching the New York Mets all the time, and Dwight Gooden was just a stud in 84 and 85. And that was right around the time I started, learning to pitch a little bit in Little League. And so that high leg kick that Dwight Gooden had is just what my body kind of morphed out of observing him. And over the years, I found it very efficient to just kind of use my foot to flick my leg up and be very relaxed and kind of easy, throwing strikes, trying to conserve energy. And that's kind of where it came from. It just became kind of like a tempo thing. It wasn't for any specific reason of, like, guys used to joke, like, is it distract the batters with your foot out there or anything? It was just comfort over time. And when you do something from the time you're 6 until you're, by the time you're 20, you just have a really hard time changing things. Right. And so you just kind of stick with what you got.
Yeah, well, I think it worked out pretty good for you, Bronson. I think you did all right with it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about. I'm wearing a shirt here. Another guy's probably gonna be in the Reds Hall of Fame and in the Hall of Fame itself. Daniel Votto. That's what everybody likes calling him. What was it like playing with him? And what are your thoughts on where he's at now? What he's doing at his age with coming back from basically reconstructive arm surgery without technical terms, but what's your just thoughts on Joey Votto?
He was a really good teammate in a lot of ways. Joey's a little introverted, and he's very smart, very studious, very funny and witty when he's comfortable to be around you, but he could be a little awkward, kind of like being around strangers. And he's obviously pushed through that over the last couple of years and doing a lot of stuff in the community and being out there with these kids' baseball teams and stuff. And he didn't do a lot of that early on in his career, and he's probably one of the most dedicated guys to the craft I've ever seen as far as baseball, taking care of his body and kind of resting and thinking about nothing else but the game. I mean, he was never out at a bar, never out at a club, just ballpark and home. That's all he ever did, And He thinks about hitting 24/7, and I think he's starting to loosen up a little bit. But, you know, we all feel that near the end of our career, and you want to kind of pass on some things to the next generation. And so he's having to be a leader in the clubhouse and a guy that people look to. And sometimes when you become that leader in the clubhouse, you're not physically leading, but you're mentally leading, you know. And Joey's at a point where I'm sure he can feel his mortality on the field. His bat speed is probably not what it used to be. He still can be productive, but not quite as consistent as he probably wants to be, you know. And it's part flexibility, it's part age, you know, your testosterone's going down. There's just a lot of things that slowly degrade over time that you don't quite can't really put your finger on all the time, because in the weight room you'll feel just as strong as you always have,
right?
But on the field there's something, just a tick missing. And I think, you know, I'm hoping Joey gets to play as long as he wants to, whether it's, you know, one more year or a couple more, and because now that we've got the DH, he can also rest off the field a little bit and just kind of go in and take some at bats if he wants to. But overall, man, great teammate. Always enjoy having a good conversation with Joey Votto.
Now you brought the DH up there. Are you in favor, or were you a pitcher that wanted to hit, or you could care less to hit? You just wanted to go pitch?
You know, it's a double-edged sword, because if you really love staying out on the mound, you know, if your at bat comes up and it's a tie game in the 6th, and you know you got a couple innings left in the tank on the mound, you get pulled out for them to pinch hit you, right, it'll drive you crazy. But on the other side of that, I really loved the strategy of the game. I loved running the bases because I could do it better than most. I loved putting bunts down. You know, I love pitching to the 9-hole hitter because you could pitch around the 8-hole guy and do some things out there strategically to try to get through a lineup. But if I had to choose for an entire career, I probably would have said, you know what, I'll give up the at-bats because I want to pitch 220 innings every year, and I'll be able to get deeper in ball games if I don't have to worry about that. Probably, if I had to choose one or the other, I'd do that. But I tell you what, hitting a home run as a starting pitcher in the major leagues, you don't get that feeling many times, man. When you float around the bases, man, it's like winning the lottery.
You hit one, didn't you?
I hit 6 homers in my career.
Okay. I thought you hit at least one. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we hit a few. I hit one that opening day that I was a Red for the very first time, and then I backed it up 5 days later with another one in Chicago and hit it out on Waveland Avenue out of the stadium. And I'm telling you, man, it's like you could win 20 games and you're not going to match the feeling of being almost like that 10-year-old kid who popped one out of the park for the first time. It's that amazing of a feeling.
You're floating around the bases while you're running, right? You don't even feel the ground.
Yeah, you hear nothing but your footsteps, especially on the road, and it's a quiet crowd, and people are looking at you like, how in the hell did that guy do that?
That guy hit a home run off of us? Come on, man.
Yeah.
So we had to hang out a couple months ago. We're up at the Pirates Den. You had your band up there, I had an absolute blast out there. And you said you had a new album coming out. What is that already out? Oh, I think it is. It was out then, right?
Yeah, I put the album out in mid-February, and it's called Some Might Say. You can find it on any place you stream your music, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you go. It's 10 songs that you know, stories straight out of my brain with a bunch of guys I'd known for 20 years out in Los Angeles, a bunch of musicians from New England. We all met when I was a Red Sox, and so the name of the band is called Bronson Arroyo and the 04.
Yep.
And you know, these are stories that most of them I wrote about just historical things. There's a song that I wrote about kind of visiting Cuba, finding where my family was from, and the revolution from the 50s. And you know, it wasn't a lot of personal stuff in there, but the thread line that goes through the whole album is kind of the optimism of Bronson Arroyo, which is just, you know, be present tense, live in the moment. Life will go by quickly and we all will die. So you better enjoy the ride. And so, you know, I felt like I had some stories I wanted to tell, and we put that out, and it's been fun.
Yeah, it's a really good album there. I'm dating myself calling it an album, CD, whatever the kids call it now. I still call it an album. My kids are like, "What's an album?" I'm like, it's a vinyl. But shut up.
No doubt. Well, I've got the Game Used shop up at the Reds and the Hall of Fame shop. They're both selling CDs and vinyl records of mine that I've signed. Some signed and some are unsigned, but they're going to be selling them this whole year, and they're going well. They're flying off the shelves a little bit, but just the artwork of a nice vinyl record. If you have a record player at home, man, it's worth picking it up. It's really a beautiful piece of art.
Now I should clarify that. My daughter's one that says it, because if my son's watching, she's like, wait a second, because he actually has a record and he likes vinyls and he's a Beatles fan. So I have more of the vinyls, more my daughter. My son, who's 23 and moved out of the house now, but he likes a vinyl, and you and him get along well. I think your taste in music, I think, would be are very similar.
Very cool.
So By the way, how much time you got? I don't want to keep you any longer. We've been on for like 20 minutes.
I got a few more minutes.
Okay, cool. All right, so I do want to get back to this Reds team, and I know you've done some broadcasting with the Reds in the past. Is there anything come up anytime soon? Because they just had Todd Frazier on the radio here a couple weeks ago. Are you going to be doing that again, joining Tommy Thrall in the booth again anytime soon? Or
I don't think so. They've got an abundance of guys over there over the years. You hear them in the off seasons kind of jockeying for spaces, whether it's Chris Welsh or Sam LeCure or Jim Day, and where they're going to slot in, and the Cowboy, and who's going to do what and where. And to be honest, I mean, for one, you need to be studied up on the game. You need to pay attention every day, which I try to watch most of the games, but I don't intently watch it. And there's also, there's something that is impossible to know about players in the locker room unless you play with them on a day-to-day basis. Even though I can go down and play some music for these guys, I don't know them the way that I used to know a guy like Drew Stubbs. And when you know people on a personal level and you shower with them every day and you go out with them at night, you know everything about them. It's very easy to just go there and wing it off the top of the head. But I can't do that with this next generation of player because I don't know them intimately like that. So I either going to have to do a lot of work and study, and also I feel like they have enough guys over there, and I don't want to be stepping on people's toes. I made a lot of money in the game, and I'm not looking to take somebody's job that could use a couple $100,000, more than I can every year. And so I try to stay out of it. If they need me to pop into the booth to do an inning or two for fun, yeah, absolutely. But I don't want to go over there and take anybody's job.
Well, I enjoyed it when you were on there with them. That was your insight and stuff you had to say in the stories. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I always like when they bring. They had Casey come on. They've had Todd Frazier. They've had you on. Different times they bring different people in. And I always like – that's one thing I like bringing, which I think the Reds have done a great job almost all the time, is bringing the veterans back, the guys who built what we had, from you guys to the Big Red Machines, all that. I think they do an awesome job. Have you been able to go down to spring training? Have they invited you to do that, to work with the pitchers or anything like that?
I've been to spring a couple of times, just popping through for a day. Sometimes we've run meetings. Talk to some of the younger guys about what it'll be like to play at the big league level. In the last few years, I hadn't been out there since COVID, basically kind of threw a monkey wrench and everything. And I was out there this spring. I was playing a show at Innings Festival, and that record I was putting out, we played a show, and Eddie Vedder was headlining that. That was called Innings Fest. And I popped into the stadium the next day and played some songs for the guys and told a few stories. And they were having talent day. And Joey Votto opened that one up with a little karaoke of Toby Keith. And so it's always fun. And that's why I've been getting down to the locker room a little bit this year. I'm going to be down there a little bit more coming up. I play the music for the guys sometimes, just kind of chat with some guys. I had good conversation with Ashcraft the other day. If guys are struggling, you're trying to figure out, maybe you can say one little thing to them in a 5-minute conversation that can maybe, change the way they think about something to help. But other than that, it's like they've got a whole team these days. Back in the old days, there was one hitting coach and one pitching coach, and now you've got an assistant of everything, and they've got the computer guys and the statistics, and they're doing such a great job down there in most locker rooms. Honestly, the only thing I can really bring to the table is that I pitch so far outside the box that I can maybe help some guys on a theory about breaking balls or something. But we get to have those conversations, but I definitely don't stop down as regular, as some of the coaching staff, that's for sure.
I got a question here from I like his name. I like Bacon. I like Bacon too. He said, Bronson, do you have a favorite Reds catcher? Somebody you like throwing to? Because we got 3 of them right now, and that's a big thing with the Reds is, do we need 3? We all want to get CES up here. But did you have a favorite catcher? Because you did have a personal one, if I remember. You had somebody you did throw to a lot. I can't remember.
Well, I had – so when I first got traded here, Jason LaRue was the everyday catcher up to that point. Right. He had a little bit of a knee injury when I first got traded in 2006, and David Ross had just got traded over at the same time.
Right.
And me and David pitched my last outing of spring training. It was only 2 weeks left in spring when I got traded from the Red Sox. I went back down and pitched against my old teammates, which was such a strange game to pitch against the guys you just got traded from. Pitch against the Red Sox and ESPN. I think I go 7 innings, no runs, 10 punch outs. And so Jerry Naring was the manager at the time, and he asked me, he said, "Hey, do you want David to catch you? You guys look like you really clicked." And I was like, absolutely. And so we got off to such a great start in 2006. I started the season like 7-1. And I was pitching 8-9 innings every single night. I threw 240 innings that year. And, David became kind of my personal catcher. But because we were having so much success, a lot of other pitchers started to kind of grovel inside the locker room being like, "Hey, I'd love him to catch me too," because they really loved his defensive style, the way he could throw the ball and the way he called the game. And so David kind of became a starting catcher in the game because of our relationship. And then he kind of parlayed that to the Red Sox and over to the Cubs to catch Lester. But I'd say David Ross and then Ryan Hannigan, when David left, kind of took that role on with me. And I just loved guys who really dedicated themselves to the defensive side of the ball. I always had a hard time pitching to guys who were really offensive players, let's say like a Mike Piazza, who really thought of catching as the secondary part of their game. But guys like Ross and Hannigan, they were both my favorites, man. They really thought about the defensive side of the ball, and it was really fun.
Now, I give it to the Reds right now. So with them having the 3-catcher system, which the whole plan was this to keep Tyler Stevenson to not catch. You know, he was going to DH, he was going to play first base. Well, then that's kind of got thrown out the door with all the young guys that have come up and they're playing so well. We have another young guy down in minor league CES who's banging on the door, should be up here already. It seems like the reason he's not is because of the 3 catchers. And I think that there are some pitchers that like pitching to certain catchers here, and 2 of them are the quote unquote backups. How legit is that? Is that something where the Reds should just go, okay, we're going to cut Mahle, we're going to cut Castillo, whoever it is, whichever one, and we're going to bring up CES? Or should they really consider, is it that big of a deal for a pitcher? He's that comfortable to keep the 3 catchers instead of bringing somebody up, or what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm not down in that locker room. Like I said, every day, it's really hard to know where the angle is of why they want to have the 3 catchers. You know, when we've had 3 catchers in the past, when I played, it was because the 1/3 guy was kind of really like a DH/first baseman who could catch, but rarely ever did. You know, you've got kind of a different situation here because Casale is still really like an everyday catcher if he wanted to be. And they're all true catchers. Even Stevenson, in a way, you know, you don't think of him really in any other position except for first base once in a blue moon. So, you know, I don't know what the angle really is. There's reasons for it for sure. I mean, between that one extra player, between being somebody who can play different positions, or if you're having that extra pitcher. But see, the league has now put limits on how many relief pitchers you can have, where in the past you could have extras. So they have less wiggle room. And then you also have so many guys on this Reds roster now that can play multiple positions that normally when you say, oh, Stevenson can play first base, but now you've got, you know, I remember earlier this year, I was looking at the lineup and I was like, there's 6 guys on the field that were drafted as middle infielders. And 2 of them are playing in the outfield. One's playing third base and one's playing first. And so you've got such an athletic kind of team that can play all over the place. You know, there's a reason they have those 3 guys, and it probably won't stay that way for the whole year. Something will happen and it'll probably switch, and then maybe you'll get them back later in the season or something. But, you know, you'd have to talk to David Bell exactly to know why that they're doing that.
Well, he's coming on the show tomorrow, so I'm going to ask him. I'm totally kidding. He's not coming on tomorrow. But, yeah, it's funny because I remember when they started making these trades and everything, and people are getting upset. They're like, oh, my goodness, how many shortstops do you need? How many middle infielders do you need? I'm like, if you can play shortstop, you can play pretty much anywhere, in my opinion. So if they can hit, you can always move them around, which that's what these guys have done. And I mean, what Spencer Steer has done is I think it's just been invaluable to this team, playing first base, third base. And then he volunteered to go out and play the outfield. You know, I don't think he's played it, you know, like probably maybe in college or something he might have played, but he never played in the minors that I know of. And he just volunteered to do that. That's what's so awesome about this team there, Bronson, is like, okay, let's just put this. Elliot De La Cruz got invited to go to the home run hitting contest. He turned it down because he said he wanted to get ready for, you know, the second half of the season. The maturity these guys show is phenomenal. I just never seen guys this young be this good. You said it's kind of like how'd you say at the beginning, a lottery ticket, which is basically what we did. We had 5 guys come up, and they're rookies, and they're playing like veterans, and they're making decisions like veterans. I don't. Is it the new kind of a baseball mentality for these guys, or are these guys just built different?
I think it's a mixture of a couple of things, you know. And I totally agree with what you're saying. If you just watch the interviews these guys are giving after the game, guys like Abbott, right, De La Cruz, even the translations that they're giving, these guys are all giving you an interview that I would have given in that locker room. You know, there's no fluff to it. There's no sugarcoating things. They're taking responsibility for their failures. They're giving credit to other guys, but they're also giving you subtleties that a lot of people just brush over in an interview. They give you the cliche answer. These guys are giving you real answers. They're giving you, you know, like, you know, what I did X, Y, and Z in the game because I was conserving this one little thing. Like if you listen to a lot of these guys, they're very, very mature. And I saw that. I saw that out of, Joe Burrows after they lose the Super Bowl. And that immediately told me that there's maturity there. And when you see that, you have the ability to take a player like that and project him out he can survive in the game for a decade. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I really believe that a lot of these young guys have a chance to play for a long time because what I'm seeing from them on the maturity side mentally. And I think it's partly to do with the fact of just evolution of a different style of player, right? We've learned from the past. When I first got called up in 2000, it was a generation of guys doing steroids and taking speed, spending money, driving fast cars, and hitting a bunch of homers. And then the next generation came in and was like, "Ooh, I don't want to waste my money like that. I've heard all these horror stories. Let's take care of my body a little bit better. I'm going to drink less. I'm going to stay in my room and play Xbox. I'm not going to go to the club as much," right? You just continue to see this evolution. And these guys now understand the weight room. They understand statistics of the game. They understand running speed. They understand how to give an interview, right? They know how to take care of their body. And you're just seeing that across the board. And that is also, hats off to the Red scouting department for picking and choosing guys who have character.
Yeah, like you say, you brought up Joe Burrow and the Bengals. That's what I've compared this team. A lot of people have been on my show have compared this team to like the 2021 Bengals. And I keep saying, these guys don't know what they don't know. They don't know they're not supposed to do this. They don't know they're not supposed to come up here and play awesome. I mean, that's what they expect. And like when you guys had the 2012 team and that run, you guys went on the field and you expected to win every game. That's where these guys are at. And 2 months ago, beginning of the season, I don't think it was like that. And it's just been the influx of these young guys that they're doing this on an everyday, day in, day out basis is just remarkable. Of just, I keep saying the maturity, but I don't know how else to say it, Bronson. I've never seen young guys come in and just instantly just take off and develop, and they're leaders of the team now too. I mean, Votto's taking a back seat basically.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it all comes down to the production on the field. When you produce on the field, you feel confident enough to walk in the locker room and speak your mind, right? And people will follow suit. And when you also, the game has gotten younger and younger and younger, and we've taken out some of the hazing. Back when I got called up, the locker room was probably an average of 31 years old. Now the average locker room is probably like 24. And so when I got called up, they made you feel like you were a rookie for a long time. I'm talking like 3 years. And they made you feel like you couldn't really step out of that shell and kind of voice your opinion and really kind of contribute to the team in any other way except in what you were doing on the field. And these days, a lot of that stuff has gone away. So when a guy comes into a locker room and he immediately feels comfortable, he immediately has success on the field, and people are giving you kudos for hitting that home run and still having some swag with it and not making you feel like there's something wrong with you because you're showboating a little bit. All those things contribute to having a younger type of player feel comfortable and have success at the big league level.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was funny the other day that we talk how Joey Votto's coming out of a show or whatever. So Ellie De La Cruz, every time the Reds win or whatever, he pulls his jersey out and tugs it, flips his hat backwards. And then Votto did the same thing the other day. 10 years ago, Votto would have never done that. I mean, that's just the stuff that's how it's changed here. And you talked about I don't want to say technology, but there's assistants for the assistant. They got all kinds of different things now compared to when you first broke in. But the thing is that I think a lot of baseball fans, or I guess old guys like me, and you talked about it here a couple of times, pitching 200 innings. That was, that was your goal to do that. I don't think that's necessarily a goal now I don't know, it could be a goal, but guys aren't going to do that on a consistent basis. I don't think anymore. Is that, in your opinion, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing, or are they babying these pitchers a little bit too much?
It's not coming from an angle of babying the pitchers these days. It's coming from the fact that they feel like their bullpens are so strong with so many guys throwing 95 to 100. And also there's some statistics of the game that tell you certain things. The way that you play blackjack, right? And you stand on your 13 when the dealer's showing a 6, is the same way that they know now that if it's second and third and we put a bunt down, we score less runs than if we swing the bat, right? These numbers have been run through the machine enough now to know. And so guys are being pulled out in times when traditionally you'd want to leave them in the game. But I would say, for my money, the teams that are going to win a World Series every year are going to have 2 or probably 3 guys who have the ability to get through the 6th inning and into the 7th inning more often than other teams. I don't believe you can win a World Series with a staff of guys who are always going 5 innings.
Right.
So for me, I think, but if you look at a guy like Abbott, who just came up, and obviously he's off to a crazy hot start. But I still, if you watch the way he pitches, I think a guy like that has the ability to get close to 200 innings in a season, right? I mean, it used to happen 40 to 50 times every year, and it's only happening about 6 or 7 times in all of baseball. The guys throw 200 innings. You know, I did that almost 10 years in a row, and it's merely the fact, it's not the player that can't do it. It's the fact that he's not having the opportunities. But I think the pendulum is swinging back in the opposite direction a little bit. I think you're seeing a Cincinnati Reds team play better baseball by not trying to hit homers. People aren't talking about swinging up on the ball anymore. You know, I think that people will realize that a guy throwing 92 to 94 can be more successful than the guy throwing 95 to 100 because he's craftier. He's got an idea how to pitch. He conserves some energy for later in the game, and he gets outs with less. And I think that you're going to see more and more of that over the next decade. And I really think you're going to get your best baseball of the blend of the two. I think that the pendulum had swung in one direction a little too far. You know, today I was watching Wimbledon, and they were talking about now, instead of saying how many winners guys are hitting, they're talking about how many errors they make. Right. And when you see the best players in the world like Djokovic play, they make no errors. And that's the consistency that you're looking for. And I believe that the not having a ton of strikeouts and not hitting a bunch of homers is actually a good thing, and you'll squeeze that consistency down into the middle of the road.
Oh, I think it's a great thing. I mean, when you and me were kids, I mean, it was speed. I mean, it didn't have home runs, but it was speed, pitching, defense. You know,
absolutely.
And they got rid of the shift, which I mean, the shift always drove me nuts. I'm like, just hit the ball down the other field here. Imagine a baseball player, but I sound like an old guy again. But I mean, the way they're playing right now, Bronson, is the baseball you and me grew up with, the speed, the stealing the games. And what this team does is they put pressure on the other team's defense all the time. And you see that consistently. And this is what I'm like, this is when baseball's fun. Everybody's like, oh, baseball's boring. You know, it's either swing and a miss or a home run. Look at the Reds. It's not now. You mentioned on here, they grind out at bats. They take the extra base. I mean, that's what made me fall in love with baseball. The way these guys are playing right now is so refreshing, and it is so much damn fun to watch them right now compared to what we had to watch for the last 10 years, you know, swing and miss or a home run, and it's just station to station baseball. Man, these guys are taking off, you know, from the get-go. I mean, they'll just steal first base if you could.
If you could, right, yeah. Right. There's no doubt about it, man. It's been fun, and it's kind of in a weird way, you know, we constantly live in a society where everything is bigger, faster, bigger, faster, bigger, faster, and you're constantly thinking that just because somebody throws harder, you know, I mean, we've been talking about it, not even in this generation. We've been talking about it in every generation. Why are we constantly obsessed with the radar gun, right? And in a lot of ways, we get obsessed with, you know, can a guy like Willie Mo Pena hit the ball 450 feet? But it doesn't mean anything if you strike out 200 times a year, right? And so it's a beautiful thing to watch the game be played the right way. And I think that this is just opening Pandora's box in a way for people to realize that if you want to compete in the game, you've got to be versatile. You've got to be able to steal bases. You've got to be able to do the small things as well as the big things, you know, and having the two put together is what will win you a championship.
And Bronson, that's what's so amazing about your career. You were never a guy who was a radar guy. I mean, if I'm wrong, did you have a fastball or a 100-mile-an-hour fastball when you were younger before you became a Red?
No.
Yeah, so you were always a guy that was pitching with your mind. Is the way I always looked at it, like because you drop down different arm angles, different this. You were a thinking man pitcher that I think they're starting to get back to a little bit of.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, there's a ton of guys in the game right now that can throw 95 to 100, and all they have is a fastball with mediocre command and a breaking ball with even less command. You know, a slider that goes kind of down. That's really, they're kind of like 2-pitch pitchers. They're basically, you know, that's what you consider a relief pitcher in the 7th and 8th and 9th inning back in the old days, and they're pulling these guys into the rotation. And for my money, I'll take in his prime a Zach Greinke any day. I'll take Clayton Kershaw any day. I'll take these guys who throw 92 to 94, have an idea how to pitch like Abbott, and I will take them over a 10-year period and eat your lunch. And if you keep throwing out guys who just, you know, have command problems because they're throwing really hard, you know, those guys are not going to be able to consistently do it year in and year out.
Now, that's one thing that is exciting for me with this Reds team. And this is one thing I thought was going to be more of the story this year. At the beginning, it was the 3 pitchers, Hunter Green, Abbott, and Lodolo. I thought those are going to be the story. Me and my son talked before the season started. So I think, depending on how good the season goes, depending on how all three of them pitch. Didn't know about Abbott. Now we got 4 of them. But, I mean, all the other 3, and Ashcraft hadn't been hurt. It looks like hopefully he's back to being the Ashcraft of old. But just the future-wise, if all 4 of these guys can actually pitch on a consistent basis, like it looks like they have potential. Bronson, this is like the Atlanta Braves of the early 90s when they had Steve Avery. That's why I always remind everybody Steve Avery was a really good pitcher. They had 4 of these guys. The future is very bright for these guys. What's your thoughts on just the 4 starting pitchers, 4 starting young Reds pitchers that they have?
Well, like you said, I was saying the same thing before the season started. They're only going to go as far as the starting 3 will take them. And the starting 3 has been kind of hurt a little bit, been up and down, had some really good moments, and really just definitely hasn't dominated the game from front to back. But what you couldn't account for is that the offense that they were going to put up with guys that we didn't know about that were in the pipeline, right? And so that has changed the trajectory of this team completely. And they're winning ball games with mediocre pitching and putting up 6 runs every night, right? And that doesn't happen a lot. It hasn't happened much here, hardly ever.
Right.
It does happen to like Yankee teams. It's happened to Red Sox teams, right? Where you see the pitching staff is mediocre and then the offense is pulling the weight. That's been so kind of at odds with what we're used to here that you've kind of forgot about the starting pitching a little bit. But you're right. If those guys can all come back, Lodolo and Hunter can come back healthy, if Ashcraft will get back on track and be like he was all last year and the beginning of this season, you got a chance to really put the whole package together. I think, the playoffs would be, they get to the playoffs, would be very interesting to see if this lineup could handle the aces of the game. Because I will say they're putting up 6 runs every night, but they're putting it up against a little bit weaker pitching than you would face in the playoffs, right? You saw what Clayton Kershaw did to him. If you're facing true number ones of the game, it'd be very interesting to see what this lineup can do. But it's definitely exciting, and it's giving them some breathing room to not have to depend on starting pitching so much. Right. And that is fun because when you can win ball games and your guys are still putting up a 5 ERA, it feels like, hey, we can walk into anybody's house and we still got a chance.
Exactly. Hey, Bronson, you've been up 47 minutes. I could keep talking to you for forever. I don't mean to hold you up anymore, but real quick, do you give Eddie Vedder crap now that the Reds are good and the Cubs aren't so good now? Because Vedder's a Cubs fan, so you got to dig him a little bit, right?
That's true. I've never dug at him for his baseball, man. He might be, guys that are musicians, man, about their sports, they're more serious than we are about our sports, man. He might be a little soft if I poke at him too much about the Cubs. But I will say, David Ross being the manager, man, it's like that was one of his favorite players of all time. So he's probably in his ear. He's the one that should be calling David Ross and telling him, like, what's going on, man? I'm getting dribbed by my friends here. I'm standing off the side of the stage asking what the score is, and you guys are always in the negative.
Hey, I love it because for years, the last couple of years, the Cubs have kicked their butt. So I'm sorry. I'm happy they're losing. I'm happy where you're at. Bronson, I appreciate it, man. This has been so much fun. Anything you want to plug or tell about your album, where they can get that again before I let you go?
Yeah, I think if you want to pick up an album, some are signed, some are not. It's either the Game Used shop, it's at the Red Stadium, or the Hall of Fame shop. There's vinyl records, a beautiful piece of art that my drummer actually did that. The guy on the front of the album, some might say is the record. And other than that, 15th and 16th is the induction. And if you want to check the Bronson Arroyo Band Facebook page, if you want to see us playing locally around town, we played last night up in Greenfield, Indiana, to about 4,000 people for 4th of July. And the band is sounding really good. If you like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Bruce Springsteen and some Tom Petty, man, come out and see us sometime.
I was front row there in February at the Pirates Head. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. All right, Bronson, we'll have to do this again sometime, man. Thanks for joining the show. All
right, Jeff. Thanks, man.
See you, buddy. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Bronson is an awesome dude. Like I said, if you got a chance to go watch him play, go watch him play. It is an absolute awesome experience. Like I said, I had a ton of fun. I'm so happy for him to be able to go into the Hall of Fame. And like he said, it couldn't happen at a better time. The team is playing well. They're in first place. Again, it's a big series coming up. When he gets inducted, the Brewers will be in town. So, I mean, it's like I said a couple times here, it's a lot of fun being a Cincinnati sports fan right now. For once, it's pretty fun being a fun time being a Cincinnati fan. Anyway, guys, let me get to the Facebook groups. They let me live stream, and I appreciate every single one of them as I move my camera. There's my window. Let's see if I move it back. There we go. All right, they are Houday Nation, Houday Legion, Bearcat Ruckus, Radical Reds, the Ohio State Bucknuts, the Ice Bar. They can follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Twitter handle is @Iceman90. I'll be pulling off the sound later on tonight, put it on the podcast. It's be on BeanPod, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much where you get your podcast. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Leave a comment and a 5-star review. I greatly appreciate it. So more Cincinnati fans can find my podcast. YouTubers, you guys are awesome. I'm up to 2,233 subscribers. As always, there's no way in hell Bronson Arroyo would have come on the show if you guys didn't watch. So I appreciate you guys watching, supporting the show. Like I said, it's just me, So if you guys can tweet out the show, tell your friends about it, I'd appreciate it. That would be awesome. And tomorrow, I think I got Coach Cam on tomorrow. I got to look it up, but we'll be probably discussing some Bengals, some Reds. Who knows? The Reds are taking on the Washington Nationals again tonight at 7:30. So I'll be listening to that as I drive to the airport to Indianapolis to go pick up my wife and daughter. They're finally coming back from vacation. I take vacation a lot. My wife and daughter were still on vacation. So I'll be doing that tonight and listening to the Reds game. Hopefully go for a sweep against the Washington Nationals. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day. And remember, that's just sports, baby. See ya!